I think that's an important question. And what the true state of the conflict is depends upon your vantage point. From the Iranian vantage point, they have accepted the fact that we are not prepared to negotiate with them. Now, people say, well, no, 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 we're offering to negotiate. No, we've never negotiated. We've shown up and presented Mr. Netanyahu's demands and insisted that they accept the demands. That's not negotiation. When they last went to Islamabad, they showed up with 70 people and they had lots of data and material, and they were prepared for a serious negotiation to end the conflict and to develop an alternative way forward. We were not. We simply showed up and repeated Mr. Netanyahu's talking points. So what do we have now? One person this morning said, well, the ceasefire that Donald Trump has declared is open-ended. In other words, it's indefinite until such time he decides to attack. But then I received information recently from some people on the inside saying that we could attack as soon as Saturday or Sunday. So uh, I think the Iranians are prepared for whatever happens, and they don't pay very much attention to anything we say. And as far as the Strait of Hormuz is concerned, I think these statements of shooting someone that's putting mines in the water, it's an expression of desperation. The mines that are there are there. We have very few ways to remove them. The mine clearing ships that we have are ancient. That's a blind spot for the Navy that has always wanted to put its money into capital ships. In other words, service combatants, not really in small things like minesweeping. For that, we relied on our NATO allies, primarily the British. The British ship minesweeper didn't make it down to the Gulf. It broke down halfway and had to be returned to Great Britain. So uh, I think that's just another meaningless statement by President Trump. The Iranians did, in fact, board some vessels that had not coordinated with them and tried to make it through the strait without doing whatever it is that the Iranians want them to do. We have been boarding vessels ostensibly for the purpose of stopping Iran from doing business. This is going to go on until there is something that breaks the deadlock. And I think the two sides, especially the Iranian side, holds all the initiative. The Iranians are in charge. We've got the wrong force for the wrong mission in the wrong place at the wrong time. We can't open that strait physically with our military power. It cannot be done. That's the difficulty.
Yeah, and it's what you're saying that I feel like Donald Trump needs to be listening to, right? Because I'm looking at him and going, okay, who is in your ear? Who is making you think that we have all of these capabilities? And yeah, we get all of these meaningless statements on social media. But when you look at what Trump has done so far, I mean, he set at least 5 deadlines for Iran, and he has then extended every single one despite Iran not complying with his demands. And it has become clear no matter how the US and Israel escalate, Iran has options to retaliate at every turn, and their retaliation is going to be much more painful for the region. So, where does that leave the Trump administration when it comes to their options? And what are your concerns about Trump acting out as he seems to be increasingly backed into a corner here?
Well, he is. He's caught between being humiliated on a national and international level, almost regardless of what he does, largely as a function of his own big mouth. He's made so many ridiculous policy statements, he can't retreat from them. We went through this before with people like Lyndon Baines Johnson, did the same thing in Vietnam. And ultimately, what did he do? He had to resign. He couldn't run again for office. I think President Trump is on the OBJ train, to be frank. This is a train going at high speed to nowhere. Now, the rest of the world is watching this. And of course, the rest of the world is dealing with some harsh realities that will eventually reach us, but not for quite a while. But the rest of the world is facing, in the very near future, famine, simply because 50% of the fertilizer that the global south uses is coming out of the Persian Gulf, and it's not coming. I looked at the prices of fertilizer this morning in India, and they have more than doubled. So India is already rationing various kinds of fuel, certainly the cooking fuel that Indian housewives use. But this problem that they have right now with fertilizer is going to hit them very hard when it comes to food. So I guess if you're an Indian housewife, a Japanese housewife, a Korean housewife, These things are starting to strike your kitchen. So they've got real problems. And I think these leaders are very frustrated with President Trump because he's not listening. He's not paying attention to it. And he doesn't seem to have the presence of mind to understand that the easiest way to end this disaster right now is to come out and publicly say, look, on humanitarian grounds, I've got to end this. There is no other solution at this stage. So we are disengaging. That's what you should say. We're disengaging because the world needs access. And we're going to turn to some intermediaries in the hopes that we can resolve our differences with Iran in the future. And that could be done, but there's a problem. The problem is called Israel and the Israel lobby and its agents in the United States that surround Donald Trump. I say that's a big problem. Of course, Donald Trump's ego is a huge problem. I mean, admitting that this doesn't work, that goes against the grain for him. Remember, he's the man that lives and dies by Roy Cohn's rules, which is deny, 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 attack, 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 and then twist anything that happens into evidence for your victory. So that goes against the grain for him. But the intelligent thing to do is exactly what I said. But if he does, well, then what does Mr. Netanyahu do, and what do his agents in the United States threaten the president with? I assume that they've got tremendous leverage for reasons other than President Trump's personal love for Israel. So that means what happens? I think his predisposition is to escalate. And I'm afraid that that will happen. And then this is the real disaster because we could recover in the next 2-3 years from what's happened in the Gulf thus far. If we ended this now, pulled out, and said we're going to find a different way forward, open up the traffic, stop this ridiculous blockade. I mean, this is kind of silly. I don't know what we're kidding ourselves about. We only have a few ships. You know, when we blockaded Cuba, we called it a quarantine. We had 180 ships at sea. The quarantine reached all the way out into the North Atlantic. We don't have that many ships, and we put a lot of ships in there, but it's still an enormous area. And the other thing is that because of the precision guided weapons that Iran has, its missiles and its drones, we're 500 or 600 miles away from the Gulf. So one wonders, as long as we're forced out that far, just how much can we actually control? We haven't even seen the Houthis go into action yet, and that could still happen. So the smart thing to do is what I said before: be honest and say, for the interests of the world, which he's completely ignored, by the way, the interests of his friends, his allies. We need to end this, and we're going to disengage, and we're going to look for another way. But I don't think that'll happen. So that means he's going to attack. And if he attacks, well, then Iran is left with very little choice because our approach to Iran is to destroy Iran. That's what Americans need to understand. That's what Israel demands of us. And that is what President Trump has promised to deliver to Israel. Not just Israel, but also Israel's agents in the United States. And most important, their financial agents all over the world, particularly in the city of London and New York City. So he's got to deliver the destruction of Iran. That means that what we do next would be aimed at that outcome. Now, I don't think that's possible, simply because Iran is too big, has too many people in it. It's beyond our ability, but that's the goal. I mean, what have we been talking about? Internal unrest, overthrow the government. Well, that didn't go very well. Regime change, decapitation strikes, assassinations, that hasn't worked. Now they're claiming, well, nobody in Iran knows who's in charge. No, that's not true. The Iranians have very definitely a unified military command structure. Everyone that has been killed has been quickly replaced. They've been prepared for everything. So that's just a lot of nonsense. And I guess it's Carolyn Levitt that keeps repeating that nonsense every day per Trump's instructions. So I guess we're waiting around to see which way we will go. I fear that we'll go the wrong way. And then that means Iran will destroy everything on the west coast of the Persian Gulf. You may not see anything there for a decade. And the world will not ultimately condemn Iran for doing what it's doing. They'll condemn us for pushing them into it. That's what I think a lot of people don't understand. We've demonized Iran in the West. The rest of the world doesn't see Iran in those terms.